Welcome to the Diane McClay Show, empowering life through choice. Get ready to discover new perspectives, motivation, and balance through Diane's compassionate storytelling and insightful discussions. Whether you're feeling stuck and discouraged or curious and looking for more possibilities, Diane has your back and she's ready to take you on a journey of self-discovery and expansion. Choice is powerful, and so are you. The Diane McClay Show starts now.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome into another show of the Diane McClay Show on the Cornelia Stephanie Media Network and Transformation Talk Radio. We are at the end of February. I'm so excited to have my friend Trish Campbell come back again to talk to us about her book, Love Me, that's going to be coming out in March. But first, I want to tease out what we're going to be talking about today. It's really easy to get caught up in the trappings of failure, thinking that failure is something that sets us back. But the reality is that failure is here to teach us a lesson. Trish has a great story to share about something that happened on her journey while she was writing her book. And as always, we appreciate you being here. Trish is a writer, a transformation coach. She is the founder of invibe.ca, and she is committed to helping and motivating individuals through their own personal evolution, through a transformative process to remember who they were and who they really are meant to be. Trish, thanks for coming back in, and nice yellow. It makes me think of springtime. It's good to see you. Thank you for coming back and talking to us about your book, Love Me, that's coming out.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me again. I feel like we just did this, but it's so great to be back. I appreciate that. And we always have so much to talk about. So especially around this topic, I feel like we could talk for hours. So
Well, we do. And one of the things that we'll direct people to is you're going to come back. I think you're going to be one of our regulars because we actually have a lot of in-depth opportunities to really kind of dig at some of these topics. We're working with the producers of Transformation Talk Radio and the Cornelia Stephanie Media Group to create a live audience after the show. So when we get that set up for my show, we'll have an opportunity to really dive in with people personally and individually when you come back. How does that sound?
That sounds awesome. I would love that opportunity to interact and just have that dialogue around all of the things that we're talking about that are helping us on our path.
Right. And let's get started. So last time you were on the show, we were talking about how it's easy to fall into the trappings of other people's expectations. And then you were actually in the process of writing your book, Love Me, and let's set the tone for our listeners about the story about why you wanted to come back on. When you were writing your book, you had an expectation that you would have it published and in people's hands by February 14th. And you came close to that date, and lead us into a little bit of what you experienced and what you observed about setting that deadline and then not meeting it. Speaking of failure.
Yeah. So interesting process. I had originally intended to, when COVID hit last year, I had planned on doing a 2020 publication for my book. And then I said, okay, let's, slow down for a minute. And so then I set a new date of February 14th. And that was for various reasons, but I set that date not knowing, long term what was involved in the process. And so it was just kind of an arbitrary date. And as we were approaching, yes, I had tremendous progress. I had an accountability partner that helped get me there. And I think that's so important too, as a side note, to have people to help you towards your goals, and you help each other in that exchange. But in that process, I set that date. I wanted to commit to that. It was important to me. But in that, I realized, okay, now I'm not going to hit that date. Oh my God, what does that mean? I'm, all the things, the thought spiral of I'm a failure, all the self-doubt comes in, the disappointing other people. And this is my story about letting go of those expectations of other people and just really feeling into that process and embracing the failure or the sense of failure, because and all along this process of evolution, I've learned that those are the moments of our transformation. Those are the moments that gift us the opportunity for wisdoms. If everything was so easy, we would learn nothing. And so I think that it's important to reframe what failure really means. It's part of success. And it goes back to what we were talking about, those expectations and the societal conditioning around success. Success, first of all, is subjective. And but we have this sort of these boxes we think we need to check, like I've talked about. And it's really about reframing the failure as an opportunity for growth, an opportunity for a transformation, and learning for the next steps, like knowing what not to do next time.
Right. I agree that, and I want to reiterate that, reframing the failure for our growth. And for the listeners who can't see my office, I have two words on my wall. One is choice and one is courage. And first of all, having the courage to reframe something, having the courage to be curious about what went wrong rather than judgmental about why it went wrong or who's to blame, I think is very critical in our transformation process. And then the other part that I think is important is we get to choose how we define ourselves, either by our failures or by our successes. So when we can change a perspective, when we can look at it from a different viewpoint, when we can come up with a different option about why that happened or what we could learn from it when it doesn't go the way we expect, I really think that's essential to us owning our own destiny, stepping into that. Would you agree?
I 100% agree. And choice, how you mentioned, that is so important, because in that process of when we're in having this awareness that we're quote unquote failing, it's having the awareness of that showing up and the awareness of how our past patterns may have been. And it's an opportunity for a new choice to do something different and to not beat ourselves up, but to find compassion for ourselves and in that process, and not judge ourselves, but take that opportunity to explore what the options are moving forward, and go from there, from those wisdoms, and apply those.
And talk to us a little bit about how did you show up when you had this false deadline, not false deadline, but it was one that wasn't realistic, but you didn't know it at the time. Yep. How, thinking back now, how were you showing up as that deadline was approaching for yourself and for your project? And then how did you show up afterwards when you had the courage to shift your perspective and give yourself a break and look at what could be improved?
Right. Well, it's interesting because, again, we think we've grown and we're beyond, we're evolving and we're constantly evolving, but we're constantly being brought back for these opportunities for another layer of growth and another layer of healing. And in that moment, it's so easy to get entangled in this myth of perfection, like I have to have everything go according to plan, and if I don't, well then I might as well not show up at all. So it's having that awareness, taking that opportunity to say, hey, wait a minute, I'm not going to repeat this pattern again. I want to choose differently, and I want to look at this as a way to learn from this error. Like, first of all, don't set arbitrary dates that and that this is a process. Any project is a process, especially one you've never done before. I've never written a book before. So yes, I can have my plan and this is the calendar, but there are so many other variables, as we have been taught recently, like that can be unpredictable and come in our way. And it's, finding those ways to move through that with courage, not getting stuck in our fears and letting that hold us back from moving forward. So for me, it was, again, reframing that in my mind and understanding that it's okay. We are imperfect by nature, so it's okay.
And what would you tell your clients or somebody who's starting a creative project like a book? What would be 3 things that they could do to really reframe their mind? I mean, it's easy as a coach to say, well, just reframe your mind. But what steps would you take a client through to get them to do that?
I mean, I would say, like, failure is not a bad thing. It is not, it's something that we're taught we need to avoid, that we need to show up to appear perfect. And this myth of perfection is what is so, it's so troublesome in our relationship with ourselves, with our relationship with other people, and just with everything, and not understanding that failure is part of our success, that we can't, like I said before, if it were so easy, we would not learn, we would not grow, we would just be like, what would be the point of anything if we're not continuously evolving and growing and applying these new wisdoms? And just understand that failure is our human nature. It is, there's no such thing as perfection. That our imperfections are the beauty of who we are. And if we just, look outside of ourselves for a second, like with nature, for example, is always showing us that there is beauty in that, and it is to be embraced. And that if everything were perfect, well, that would be boring. So,
right.
And the other thing I would say is, like, start from where you are. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to know everything about everything that you're setting out to do. You can learn as you go. You will make an impact with your, with yourself, with your, whatever, timelines you set for yourself, even if it's not within those. Any little step forward, like, start where you are and just keep going, and don't be held back by that failure, because I feel like that's a key component to being successful.
And I want to tap in on that. The three things that I have learned to ask myself, and now I incorporate this into the coaching that I do with my clients, is to ask yourself some questions. And the first one is, like, if you find yourself getting frustrated or angry or mad at yourself that something didn't go the way it should, or it didn't go according to plan. I mean, first of all, stepping back and saying, the reality is we're not trying to, save lives with almost, some of us might be, if we're doctors or nurses or that, but in general, we're just trying to contribute to the world in our own way. So giving ourselves that grace. But here's the first question I like to ask. What am I reacting to? Am I reacting to what other people are saying? Probably not. Am I reacting to what other people are thinking about me? Maybe. Or is it more likely that I'm reacting to what I think other people are going to say about me, or how I think I should show up for other people? And the difference in those four questions is, the first two is, what's happening in my mind and my heart versus what do I project is happening that's coming at me from other people. And more often than not, it's coming from us rather than coming from, I don't have anybody in my life saying, why didn't you get that deadline done on time?
Right.
If I have a coach in my life who's holding me accountable, that's a little bit different because we've made an agreement. But generally, it's how am I interpreting the information that I am generating in my own head? Do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that it goes back to not beating ourselves up, we're our biggest critique or critic, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Again, here's my imperfection. But
God bless imperfection.
Yeah. And so we are our biggest critic. And I think that we think we know what people are thinking. And a lot of time, everyone has their own stuff. And I think the showing up is important. Showing up for ourselves. Like, we're not here to show up for other people. Yes, we're here to connect and to help each other along the way. But I think showing up for ourselves in tapping into, connecting with our soul, and is inspiring for other people to do that same thing. So embracing our imperfection, understanding we're human, bringing that to the forefront. I think we talked about that the last time too, that human essence, bringing that, normalizing that, like, we are human. Let's not pretend that we're not.
Right.
So,
well, and I have a quote that I just love. Thomas Edison, when he was making filaments for light bulbs, it said that a lot of people accused him of failing. A lot of people said that he was an inventor and he would never make anything of himself because he kept failing. And his response was, when he found the right filament for the light bulb, he said, I did not fail. I found 999 ways that it didn't work. And I think that's a great invitation to ask ourselves, what can we learn? Like, if something doesn't go right, rather than beating ourselves up, if we can say, okay, what did I learn in this? And I have a friend who's a supervisor at UPS, and her style of management is to allow her employees to fail.
Mm.
because she'll say to them after they it's easy for her to say, do it this way and do it this way, but she'll say, well, figure it out. And then if they get it wrong, she'll go back and say, what did you learn? Because the lesson of what did you learn is actually more powerful than how come you didn't get it right the first time.
Right.
And I think that's really important, that what is there available for me to take in and improve? And I guarantee you, I believe that you almost never make the exact same mistake twice. If you
Right.
really, truly want to improve and show up for yourself in the best version of yourself, it is in our nature to understand how to do it better. One, I mean, if we're embarrassed because we made a mistake, we're like, yeah, I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah.
I mean, how many of us have inadvertently texted somebody, and told them something that we didn't really want them to know because we didn't check the name on the text?
Right.
Well, I've done that. I've been
Mm-hmm.
embarrassed by that. And I guarantee you that is not a mistake I'm going to make twice, because I figured out how not to do that.
Not to do that. Right. And I think that's so important in that piece and that learning and that wisdom, but also in reframing what failure means, because as you're talking, I'm thinking of like my own life experience and getting let go from my job. Like I could see that as a failure, and a lot of people have been there. We get our identity gets attached to that. And when we get let go, we're like, oh my God, like I'm a failure. I'm such a bad person. I'm this, I'm that. And it's like if you look at anyone's story around that, and after that is usually where transformation has happened in their life. It's a pivotal moment of their lives. I know it was for mine. And it's happened twice, and I'm okay with that. I have reframed that to say, okay, that's not where I belong. And it has opened up new paths for me to create something new and to have more opportunities for failure and getting more comfortable with failure, even though it's not always comfortable, like I just experienced recently, but learning from it.
I think we need a different word than failure. Failure is
Yeah,
like,
'cause
it
it's
has
so
such a, like, even in my body, when I hear failure, it feels very heavy and icky and
Mhm.
like, ew, I don't even want to manage the word failure. Like, just the fact that I'm suggesting a different word is funny, because there's something about not embracing the word failure. But there are a lot of cultures. Interestingly enough, there's a story about the art of imperfection, and I heard it first with a friend of mine told it to me when I was addressing my own perfectionism, about how Navajo weavers will purposely weave in a line of imperfection. Their belief is that God is the only one who can be perfect, and humans can't possibly attain perfection even if we try. And so by deliberately and artistically incorporating something that is asymmetrical or out of alignment or not according to the pattern of the weave is very, very deliberate. And I did some research online. In India, in the district of Punjab, there is needlework that is done where different types of colors of beads might be put in to ward off an evil spirit, or there might be a different stitch that is made to celebrate a specific occasion. Japan has the art of wabi-sabi in their pottery. So there are cultures around us that embrace the concept of flaws, imperfection, artistic design. And I think there's something we can learn from that.
I think so too. And I'm so glad you mentioned all of those, because I mean, we've talked about that as well, but that weaving of imperfection, it opens up it takes away the negative aspect of failure, first of all. But specifically around the Navajo story, I think that purpose is so that, I think this is so beautiful, is that so the artist can enter, so artist soul can enter and exit the piece. And it's like, connecting your soul with that piece for that moment. I see you just got chills.
I did, up and down my spine and my arms.
So it's that, but it goes back to this thought of our values have been materialistically driven versus intrinsically driven in society. And it's like coming back to the intrinsic, the inherent nature, the intuitive guidance that's within us with our soul, that connection, and taking those wisdoms from all these cultures that are, kind of hidden, and, bringing those out to the forefront, because that is that is ultimately honoring our human nature. And I think we need more of that.
And I know that you have actually embraced the art of imperfection, weaving that into your story, Love Me.
Mm-hmm.
So real quick, let's tie that in. We've got about 10 minutes left. I know you have a special piece. You're going to actually read a poem by you to our audience that means a lot to you. So give us a little bit about Love Me, tie it into imperfection, and then let's migrate into that beautiful poem you wrote.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, the story behind the book is my own journey in understanding all of the things, all of the ways I was showing up imperfectly, and learning from that. Just each time, every time I was faced with something, learning from those situations and taking away something new that I could apply in the next path forward. And this story is about me kind of unraveling that myth of perfection within myself, and just allowing myself to show up just as I am. And we are all like already worthy of it all, just as we are. And so not having to prove anything to anybody that we're perfect, that we're good enough, because we already are all those things. So that is, I hope by me sharing that it inspires other people in their own journeys.
I was fortunate enough to get a draft copy of your book, so I don't physically have one in my hands yet, but the story is beautiful. There is, what I appreciate about it is the level of confidence and courage that you bring into articulating each piece of that journey and each piece of your story. And I think it's something that readers and listeners I think it's something that people need to read, because even though it's your story, the examples that you bring to life, I think, are things that everybody experiences: job loss, relationship changes, questioning what your place in your family, your friendship circle, your society, your community. So almost every time when we're on the show, we always talk about how, you mentioned it earlier, about how nature really is the art of imperfection, about how the story I told you was, it always fascinates me how well trees survive after a utility company butchers half of them. Like,
right.
The utility company comes in with a big brush hog and they chop or lawnmower down the side of the tree that faces the power lines, so that the power lines don't get damaged by them. But it's amazing to me to watch how resilient a tree can actually be when it's not perfectly manicured, it's not groomed well, or it's not pruned the right way. And so let's speak a little bit about how nature helps you balance. I know for me, whenever I feel out of touch of anything, I just go outside and I can just sit and breathe or look around me, and I feel automatically better and inspired. So connect to nature, and then let's bring in your poem, and then we'll tell people how they can connect with you.
Sure. So I think in nature, just you go and you look around, it's just looking outside of yourselves, and you'll see like the trees in nature not being cut by for a power line purpose, but just growing. One side is like larger than the other, more full. And we don't judge that tree. We say, oh, that's the beauty of it. Or, in my book, like I talk about the flowers that we plant the seeds for, and we're watering them, and we don't get mad at them because they're not growing fast enough, or they're not, turning out. We just let them be and grow. And there's this natural intelligence that reminds us that also is within us, and that we, sometimes shut that out. And it's like embracing that imperfection that nature is constantly showing us on, whenever we're in it. And I think of, like, we have a full moon coming up. The full moon, if you see it in its fullness and just in its clarity, it's so beautiful. But put some like clouds and mist in front of it, and it's like even more so. So it's like that's imperfection, or that's the beauty of imperfection. So, I mean, those are a couple examples.
So we're really surrounded by it. So we got 5 minutes left. Bring us in. Read us.
Okay.
Please bestow us with your artwork and your poem, and then we'll tell people how to connect. This is Love
the
Me.
Book. Love Me, Awakening to Healing, Self-Love, and Liberation. And this is a poem called Nature Shows Us How. Overlapping the old and new, Nature shows us how. The scent of one season lingers, the crisp air of the new enters in and chills my skin. Both envelop me, both revealing evidence of me, of us, this existence, this life. The whispers of nature surround me, turning leaves all around, wafting, floating, Mother Earth shedding her skin in bold color, icy, cool snowflakes kissing my nose softly. Everywhere around us, reminders of the infinitely unique expressions of one divine light we are. It somehow all works, this space of transition, the unknown in between, its initial discomfort, its mystical, enigmatic essence overshadows curiosity. And then we flow. We weave in with it, and we trust. We trust the wisdom of natural intelligence. We trust our interconnectedness with nature's acuity. We weave in and through, and we feel it. We embody it. There is no becoming. We already are. We always have been. One hand stretched behind us in the process of letting go, one hand extended in front of us, reaching to touch the edge of the unknown. Always we are carried. Always we are connected, each a part of this greater power. Nature is the infinite, indivisible, and unnameable, and it always, always knows the way. Thank you for that.
No, thank you. We've got 2 minutes left, but you reminded me to just slow down and breathe. You reminded me to just be present. And we've got to have you back on when we get this book launched in March. Tell people how they can get a hold of you.
Okay. I'm always on Instagram. So at invibe.ca, very active there. You can message me, shout out. There's email access through that. My website, www.invibe.ca. Those are the 2 most accessible places to reach me. And thank you so much for having me here.
No, thank you, Trish. And in that moment, so I guess the final words I would have to our listeners is, wow, first of all, Trisha's reading of that poem, I don't know about you, but for me, it just totally brought me down to just in a positive way, a lower vibration where I could just absorb. So I'm Diane McClay with the Diane McClay Show. I'm part of the Cornelia Stephanie Media Group. You can always find me the second and fourth Friday at 1:30 in the afternoon. And I really appreciate you guys showing up and giving us the time with you and also giving you the time with yourselves. So this is Diane McClay. We'll sign off today. I believe in you, and we're here for you.
Thank you for listening to the Diane McClay Show, where you are empowered to enact change in your life through choice. You know that little voice in your head that's been telling you to pursue that passion project? Or maybe it's been screaming for you to go outside and explore the great outdoors. That voice is you, and you deserve to be heard. Listen, make a choice, make a change, and watch yourself grow. For more information about Diane or to work with her personally, visit dianemcclay.com.
Views expressed on this program are those of the host, guests, and callers, and do not necessarily reflect the views of the station, its management, or advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.